judge overseeing a legal battle between actress Blake Lively and director Justin Baldoni has threatened to move up their trial date if the war of words they are conducting via the media.
Justin allegedly got his hands on explosive tapes that could shake Blake Lively's marriage to its core. Sources say these recordings might expose unsettling secrets about Blake and Justin's hidden relationship, one that could send ripples across Hollywood if it goes public. What's really going on behind the scenes? Is this just another publicity stunt? Or is Justin preparing to drop a bombshell that could unravel everything Blake has built? Here's where things take a wild turn. Leaked voice memos and text messages, not part of the lawsuit, have surfaced. These weren't from the official legal files, but insiders say what's in them is damning. The content paints a very different picture of Blake and Justin's dynamic, one that could completely rewrite the narrative. And then there's the on-set footage. In the clips, Blake appears to contradict key claims she made in her official complaint. All of it is reportedly being preserved for trial, and let's just say, Blake could be headed toward an Amber Heard-level media spiral, but it gets even messier. Apparently, Blake tried to use her connections, leaning on Taylor Swift and even her husband Ryan Reynolds, to pressure Justin and Sony Pictures. The threat? No promo, no celebrity backing, and total media blackout unless she got the film. It backfired badly.
Will admit and apologize when I fail. I am far from perfect. I am a very flawed man, as my wife will attest. And and I'm going to fuck up. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. I'm going to piss you off, probably, but I will always apologize and find my way back to...
Here's the full story. And trust, it's messier than anyone expected. Back in 2019, Colleen Hoover, author of the best-selling novel, sold the film rights to Justin. Not only that, she personally recommended him for the role of Rial. At the time, Colleen and Justin were close friends, and she was heavily involved in developing the script. She even promoted the project alongside Justin after the alleged harassment claims surfaced. Yeah, awkward doesn't even begin to cover it. Now here's where things heat up. After Blake filed her lawsuit and then suddenly dropped it, Colleen took to Instagram to show her support for Blake. But hold on, this public display came after the now infamous interview clip you just saw. Behind the scenes, things were already falling apart. Blake wasn't given final say in how the film was edited, and when she realized she couldn't cut it the way she wanted, she reportedly refused to promote the movie altogether. What's the real motive here? Why the sudden shift? And why was Justin being quietly pushed out? Here's the tea. Justin was constantly praising Blake. In interviews, press events, you name it, he complimented her talent and promoted the film tirelessly. Meanwhile, Blake slowly took over. She blocked him from having creative input, seized control of the edit, ran the marketing, and, most surprisingly, appeared to turn Colleen against him. And through it all, Justin never clapped back. He stayed quiet, never saying a negative word about Blake publicly. But Blake? She didn't offer a single kind word about him, despite private messages that showed her repeatedly thanking him, acknowledging his vision, and even letting him help shape the film early on. Then came the accusations about inappropriate behavior during intimate scenes, yet Blake allegedly had total control over those moments. Every time she had a chance to credit Justin's work, she pivoted the conversation. Let's be honest, Blake knows how to play Hollywood, and she's playing to win. In her lawsuit, Blake claimed Justin improvised too much and kissed her more than necessary. But let's be real, there were only 2 kissing scenes before production paused. Then suddenly, when Blake returned, she showed up with a long list of new demands. Even more suspicious? She refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator before filming resumed. For someone raising concerns, that's looking a little fishy.
You were even the intimacy coordinator in some of your scenes. Like, we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have. Thank goodness.
You were teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you seen
that
I actually just saw it too. It was on Instagram yesterday, I think.
I mean, I think that, like, you know, romance is really important. You're supposed to, tell a story, well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that, is like safe and respectful for all. I guess that's the role of intimacy coordination. But, when I think of my involvement in the film, I don't really see that as the thing that I did.
This might explain why Colleen Hoover ultimately sided with Blake. After Blake took control of the editing room, Colleen was brought in to help finish the film. But let's be honest, there's more going on here. If Colleen truly believed Justin's original script was that good, why was Blake constantly rewriting lines and changing scenes during filming? Something doesn't add up, and trust, this goes deeper. We're now seeing how Blake and Ryan Reynolds have been subtly trolling Justin for months. Meanwhile, everything coming to light right now seriously undermines Blake's harassment claims during production and her lawsuit. Blake alleged that Justin was improvising too much and kissing her more than necessary during scenes. But here's the reality. There were only 2 kissing scenes before production went on hiatus. When filming resumed, that's when Blake came back with a laundry list of new demands, even more suspicious. She outright refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator before they picked up shooting, despite the fact that Justin did meet with the coordinator and followed all industry protocol. That's a red flag, especially from someone raising concerns about boundaries, and it's not just about the lawsuit. Blake made calculated moves behind the scenes. She pulled strings to bring Colleen into the editing process after effectively taking the film out of Justin's hands. That may have swayed Colleen's loyalty, but it wasn't the whole story. What makes it even murkier is this. Colleen had publicly praised Justin's script as phenomenal. So, why was Blake suddenly changing so much of it on set? The timeline doesn't lie. Something was shifting, and it wasn't about safety. It was about control, for those harassment claims. There's now plenty of evidence that directly contradicts Blake's version of events. And sources close to Justin confirm his team has been documenting everything. And here's the real kicker. When it came to casting young Lily, Justin ultimately chose Isabella Ferrer. But according to insiders, that decision wasn't even his to make. It was Taylor Swift who convinced Blake that Isabella was the perfect fit.
We are just such similar people already that I actually didn't feel like I had to do that much to tap into those mannerisms.
I'm moving to Capri, and Isabella's going to take over my whole life now, because I realize I can just peace and no one will notice.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It'll just be me from
She's
now
inherited
on.
4 children, an amazing husband. It's
So
going to be great.
Even though Justin Baldoni was the one who discovered Isabella Ferrer, cast her, and pitched her to Blake Lively and Taylor Swift, his role in the decision was quietly erased. On paper, he championed her talent from the start. He hyped her up in interviews, sent her encouraging messages, and stood by her performance. Privately, Isabella thanked him. Publicly, she said nothing. When the premiere rolled around, Isabella went full Team Blake, even though she had never worked directly with Blake on set. Her scenes were exclusively with Justin. Still, Blake reeled her in fast, styling her for red carpets, taking her to premieres, and even bringing her to the Deadpool and Wolverine sets to hang out with Ryan Reynolds. It wasn't just support, it was strategy. Blake was folding Isabella into her inner circle, making sure her loyalties were cemented. By this point, Isabella was ghosting Justin completely. And it wasn't hard to see why. Blake and Colleen Hoover were running the show now, and any sequel talks clearly pointed in one direction. Isabella's future looked secure, and Blake was holding the keys. She wasn't playing fair. She was playing smart. Hollywood strategist energy all the way, but let's rewind to how Blake even got that power. During production, Blake and Ryan began inserting themselves deeper into the creative process, rewriting lines daily, something most actors would never get clearance to do. Blake leaned hard into the underdog narrative, telling Justin that past directors had stifled her creativity. Moved by her vulnerability, Justin let her rework a pivotal rooftop scene. Blake claimed Ryan and Taylor loved her version, a subtle but heavy-handed way of pressuring Justin to accept her changes. That one rewrite cracked the door open. From there, Blake steamrolled her way through the script, editing on the fly and pushing for creative control on every scene. Justin, trying to keep the peace, went along with it. But the dynamic shifted. Suddenly, every directing choice he made was being second-guessed. She wasn't just collaborating, she was slowly taking over. Then came the drama that shifted everything. The fat-shaming allegations, according to text messages now made public. The entire fat-shaming controversy that Blake and Ryan stirred up appears to have been blown out of proportion and possibly orchestrated. It all began when Justin privately asked Blake's trainer, Don Saladino, how much Blake weighed.
Why?
Because Justin suffers from chronic back issues and needed to lift Blake for a specific scene. It was basic physical prep, not personal, but what happened next shocked Justin. The day after that private question, he was summoned to Blake and Ryan's penthouse. As soon as he walked in, Ryan confronted him, furious, swearing, demanding to know why he had asked about Blake's weight. Justin, completely blindsided, apologized over and over, doing whatever he could to keep things from escalating. Ryan then demanded that the lift scene be cut entirely. Blake refused to film it. And suddenly, what had been a technical question turned into an accusation of body-shaming. To make matters worse, Blake later claimed Justin connected her with a weight loss specialist as another form of body shaming. But the texts paint a different picture. Justin had referred her to a gut health expert after Blake confided she'd been on several rounds of antibiotics. In the messages, he reassures her that she looks amazing and that they could delay the body-conscious scenes until she felt ready. He showed support, not cruelty. Blake, on the other hand, joked in messages about still having 20 pounds to go after her fourth baby. The tone was casual, even humorous. But later, that joke was twisted into evidence. Then came the digital cleanup. Don Saladino, the trainer at the center of the conversation, quietly edited an old post last week to distance himself from Justin. He reaffirmed Blake as his primary client, making his loyalty clear. It wasn't just about health anymore. It was about choosing a side, and Hollywood was watching. Meanwhile, Justin's legal team compiled 168 pages of emails, texts, and WhatsApp messages. The paper trail doesn't support Blake's claims. If anything, it reveals a pattern of manipulation, with Justin trying to accommodate her at every turn while Blake constructed a very different narrative behind the scenes. Let's talk about that footage Blake allegedly demanded. Raw behind-the-scenes clips, something actors rarely get unfettered access to, became another battleground. Blake wanted it all. Crew members objected, saying it wasn't standard protocol. Justin, trying to stay flexible, handed over some of it. But when he eventually said no to further requests, Blake escalated. She brought in Ryan and her lawyers with a fresh list of demands, holding the production hostage. Justin's career, the movie schedule, and even Sony's involvement were suddenly hanging in the balance. And then, the biggest contradiction of all, the harassment footage. Blake claimed Justin acted inappropriately during a romantic scene, sniffing her, kissing her neck, and crossing professional lines. But the leaked footage tells another story entirely. In the raw clips, they're in character, following direction, and even laughing between takes to build chemistry. In one cut, it's Blake who suggests they interact more physically to make the scene look believable. In fact, the original script didn't even include dialogue for that moment. It was just a romantic gesture. But Blake suggested adding lines to make it feel more intimate, and Justin, as usual, agreed to shoot both versions. This wasn't just about creative differences. It was a calculated effort to rewrite the story around her. A subtle pattern emerged, one that mirrors other infamous Hollywood scandals. Think Amber Heard. Blake positioned herself as the victim, weaponizing her influence and using sympathy and public opinion to her advantage. Behind the curtain, though, the receipts tell a very different story. Every move, reworking the script, pulling in Colleen Hoover, folding Isabella into her circle, leaning on Ryan's name, even playing the underdog with Justin, was part of a larger strategy. Justin, hoping to keep the production afloat, bent over backwards. But Blake wasn't bending at all. She was building an empire, one decision at a time. By the time the public saw the final trailer, the entire creative DNA of the film had shifted. Blake's influence was everywhere. And Justin? The director who started it all, who cast the lead, developed the vision, and fought to keep the project alive, was quietly written out of the narrative. But now, with messages, memos, and raw footage surfacing, the quiet director isn't staying quiet anymore. The legal battle ahead could expose everything. The backroom deals, the character reversals, and the slow dismantling of his authority on a film he built from scratch. Hollywood loves a good redemption arc, but it also loves a takedown. And right now, it looks like Blake Lively might be standing on shakier ground than anyone expected. In the raw behind-the-scenes footage, Justin Baldoni is actually seen complimenting Blake and Ryan's real-life marriage, calling it sweet and genuine, and even sharing heartwarming details about his own relationship. The tone is friendly, respectful, and fully professional. So where, exactly, is the inappropriate behavior Blake later described? Because from what's been released, none of it adds up. Blake wasn't just acting in the film. She was deeply embedded in every layer of the production. Known for her marketing savvy and strategic thinking, she somehow managed to convince Ryan Reynolds and eventually the rest of the cast that Justin was the problem. But the question remains, why would Blake, Colleen Hoover, and the actors turn on the director who made their project a global success? The answer might be as calculated as it is simple. Power plays and future profits. The sequel to It Ends With Us, titled It Starts With Us, is already in early development. And while Justin currently holds the rights, Blake has been eyeing the director's chair. Interestingly, Justin publicly supported the idea at first, calling Blake a powerhouse and saying she'd make a great director. But behind closed doors, it seems Blake may have had a different vision, one where Justin was no longer part of the picture. She's already surrounded herself with a loyal camp: Ryan, Taylor Swift, Colleen Hoover, and the core cast, and those alliances have helped isolate Justin. Still, there's a catch. For Blake to take over the sequel, Justin would either have to voluntarily step aside or be forced out via a morality clause in his contract. That clause could be triggered if he were found guilty of harassment or if his involvement caused reputational harm to the franchise. If that happens, the rights could revert to Sony or Hoover, paving the way for Blake to step in. It's a shrewd long game. And if it works, Blake gets to lead the sequel while still cashing in as a producer and star. But there's more. Back in September, before lawsuits and headlines, Ryan Reynolds allegedly offered to buy the sequel rights directly from Justin, reportedly offering millions. Justin refused. Sources say it all came to a head during a tense meeting at Blake and Ryan's penthouse. Their effort to persuade him fell flat. From that point on, everything seemed to shift. So now, with a harassment suit hanging in the air, many are speculating, was this lawsuit Blake's final move to push Justin out? According to Justin, the betrayal cuts deep. He recalls Blake once comforting him during a rough studio meeting and praising his creative instincts. He truly believed they were on the same team. We don't have all the receipts yet, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but let's be honest, something about this entire situation doesn't sit right. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments.